Financial Management Association. So welcome everybody. The first thing I want to do is talk. We're going to have elections for officers within the FMA, and I'd like to just give a breakdown of what each person does. So I'm the president. So I mean, these have 5 or 6 points in each of them, but essentially the president leading the organization, overseeing the development of a plan for meetings and events for each semester in advance of the semester. So, I mean, what I have done, and each of the officers can talk about just generally what they do. What I've done is work with Dr. Philbeck and Dr. Coy to try to coordinate some of the speakers that we're going to have for these events, and then obviously I work with the officers to talk about things that they want to see done with the group. Talk about the field trip that we're going to do, and pretty much just kind of act as an arbitrary person to go to for any ideas that the officers and the members of the club might have. Next, Richard, if you want to talk about what you do for...
Usually coordinate among the committees. We'll talk about, I think we'll touch on committees here in a little bit as we recruit for that. I've worked with the FMA organization at its heart to get like marketing materials for our open houses, and then usually I try to reach out and find speakers.
Yeah, and covers for me when
when
I can't show what I'm putting in. Programs.
Yeah, this is basically what I do. I cover the meetings that we have, and I stream them so people who can't join, like alumni or World Campus members, can actually still join us. Whatever, basically filling in whatever other positions they need me to.
Motions?
I set up the posters you guys see for the meetings to make sure everyone knows about it, the digital signages on the TVs and Clark. And I also, last year, we did do a little recruitment meeting, and I was in charge of that too.
And I see networking isn't here. I don't think Maxwell's on here, but pretty much what he does is he'll organize the list of the members, make sure everybody's paying dues, not just local, but also national dues to be recognized as a part of the Financial Management Association, and also works with some of the recruiting that we do. Across from that, secretary, Jessica's not here, but the primary thing that she does is she'll take minutes for each of the meetings, and she also helps a lot with the work. She's very good with that. Pretty much just assists Richard and me and some of the things that we do for the club. Danny, do you want to talk about treasurer?
Yeah, he pretty much just keeps track of all the dues and down in the rough desk. And any checks that we get from FMA that they send, I go and deposit those, and then also pizza and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, most important job here.
Exactly.
And then Buzz. Networking, I think, is a really, really tough one, because I think it's always, we want to try to improve this going forward, but I think trying to put this, I just talked to Dr. Philbeck about it, putting together the social events has been kind of a tough thing when you have to go through student activities. And somebody like Kylie, who's an RA, you were really helpful with helping us get into, what's that little thing up in the one's called? The Olivers, yeah, helping us get up into there and have some snacks and be able to sit around and talk. So moving into the future, we'd really like to try to improve that area. But I think we've had a very good group of officers this last year, and I think we've been able to make a positive impact on the community here. So what I want to start with is my nomination. Pass off the presidency. I'd like to nominate Vladimir Kolesnichenko as the president of the Financial Management Association, and open the floor to any other nominations. All right, all in favor? Vladimir Kolesnichenko is the next president of the Financial Management Association. Vice President.
He's not here, Matt.
Chrapowicz.
I'm terrible with names, people, I'm sorry. He's in basketball, so if anyone else wants to take a peek, shut a peek.
Okay, all in favor about yourself and nobody else.
All in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
I thought you were nominating. Okay, well, Matt Chrapowicz is the next vice president. Any nominations for treasurer? Well, I'd like to nominate John McDermott as the treasurer of the Financial Management Association. Any other nominations?
All in favor?
Secretary.
I'll nominate Chris North. He's not here right now. He's an RA.
All right, so, okay. Any other nominations? All right, Chris North, secretary. VP of promotions?
I'd like to nominate Jeff.
Raise your hand, Jeff. There you go.
Any other nominations? Okay, Jeff Spencer. VP of membership, any nominations?
I'll nominate Ethan Moody. He's not here.
Ethan,
right
he was here at the beginning. We want to talk about him for a second, but he has costume, so. Give it up for Ethan. For VP of programs, I would like to nominate the future Karen resident, Andrew Hoverson. Being in the, just a little bit of bragging point about Andrew, being not only the president and chief investment officer, but also the lead analyst for the healthcare sector. I've never had a better associate analyst come up with good qualitative details on companies. I mean, everything was precise, everything was very well put together, and I put together some really meaningful reports and our quarterly report, president's report, thanks to Andrew. So I'm officially nominating him for programs. If there are any other nominations, speak now for before we feed. Okay. And then VP of networking. I'd like to open up that. So if anybody has anything to add on. There's definitely some bright young minds in here. Feel free, do not feel cocky to nominate yourself if you feel like that you will serve well in here and be a part of something really helpful. What's your name? Brad Lucas. Brad Lucas. Anybody else? Brad Lucas. And then we have Dr. Philip. How do I want to do VP of World Campus? Because that's since we've started incorporating them, that's been a.
Why don't we work offline to try to address that, since the people watching on the broadcast,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't, I mean, they have to be.
Yeah, so I figured that would probably be a pain.
Yeah, so
So-
we'll have that offline.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. And I'd like to introduce Shane Elzer, who was not in the original document or presentation, that's why I didn't know him. And then Joe Chrapowicz, who I coordinated with earlier this year. They will be speaking about General Electric. So.
I'm Joe, Shane, both went to school here back in the mid-2000s, which feels like many moons ago, but also you look at how time flies today, wonder where it went. So I was here from 04 to 08. Shane was a couple of years ahead of us. I'll let you know when he introduces himself. Joined the General Electric company back in 2011. Been through various roles since then, through fulfillment, different material planning, technical advisory role for the process and materials, up into my current role, which I just hit the 2-year point here. So let Shane introduce himself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Max, too. And thanks, guys, for letting me be a part of the evening here. So Shane Elzer, again, an alumni here. It was a business economics major back in the day. I started in 2002, graduated in 2006, and got my MBA a year later. So I did spend a little bit of time within these ones. When I was in your seat, actually, I started as an intern in GE back in, I think it was 2003, when I started there. Then held various roles throughout my time here at GE, whether it was in quality or manufacturing or engineering, whatever the case may be. Actually got my current role as a supply chain cost accountant in 2010, and I've been doing that with various levels of responsibilities since then, so the past 6 years. And today, Joe, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and we'll be happy to answer any questions throughout the presentation.
We won't get too specific with you guys, but I mean, as a core group, FMA, I mean, most of your core finance studies, anything outside of that?
What do you do?
I do business and engineering and European finance.
We actually have a earth science major who is on our supply chain finance team.
Really?
Yeah, so I mean, it just proves that, you know, you can kind of do whatever you want to do with whatever background you have. So,
Diversity, that's
exactly. Whether it's engineering, whether it's earth science, whether it's English.
A couple familiar faces in the room. Obviously, Sam's a key member of our sourcing team. Anybody else, like Shane talked about, internships, co-op, anybody with a supply chain background thus far, or kind of any aspirations with the corporate finance route in the future once you graduate? Not really. Everyone's still pretty core studies is primary focus. All right, we'll get started here. Kind of give you a quick background on GE as a whole. I'm sure most of you are familiar with our local site here in Erie. Our corporate headquarters is now in Chicago, Illinois. We do have numerous sites across the globe. Within our direct supply chain, the cool thing about it is, even though Shane and I call Erie home, we're vested with many different sites across the globe. First one being here in Erie. We also have sites in Texas now, Virginia. We have many different service shops across the domestic United States. And then globally, we have large presences in Brazil, South Africa. We have mining in Australia now. So it just really shows you the scope of, you know, us being here in Erie doesn't mean we're directly linked to Erie. There's a lot of opportunity out there within the company, not only within transportation, but as a whole across the entire global sector.
Yeah, one thing to get to quickly, Bill, is I don't know how many of you are actually from the Erie area, but obviously GE Transportation has a big footprint in the community. And there's probably heard some horror stories we can say about GE Transportation, but then moving headquarters to Chicago, moving a lot of manufacturing down to Texas. And while, you know, it may paint a dark picture for the local community, it's a very positive picture for the broader business, because we can leverage other areas of not only the United States, but leverage other areas of the world to make sure that we're maintaining competitiveness within the industry. So it's just, you know, it's kind of it's an illustration of how we're trying to utilize workforces around the globe to make sure that we're more competitive.
And just the industry as a whole, I mean, freight being down, oil commodities being down, there's definitely challenges that go, you know, link back to kind of Shane said, it being competitive globally. So it's definitely a peaks and valleys business. There's upswings, downswings, but again, you gotta buckle down through it and make sure that we can, you know, just make things as good as we can and endure the fight until, you know, market bounce back. Okay, kind of just give you a whole scope of the different portfolios within transportation. Rail being one of the main associations here in Erie. We also have a big presence in the mining sector. We make a lot of the propulsion systems for different mining companies out there. Marine and stationary, so we'll also have the water presence. And stationary, you can kind of think of as a large generator or like a small power plant, enough to be self-sufficient. And then drilling, we do have our own oil and gas sector of the business, but we still do drill motors here locally. And then services is a huge part of our portfolio. Our maintenance service agreements stretch 10s, 20s, 30s of years out from when a product is sold. So that's a big part of kind of the aftermarket service. Once we put a product into inception, that's not the end all be all. It's always a continuing dialogue with our customers after. And then some more specific pictures we have here of kind of the core products that Shane and I work with individually. This is an example of a marine stationary engine up there. Also, our customer just unveiled at our Mine Expo this year in Las Vegas. This truck is actually, you'll notice it doesn't have an operator cab on it. There's nobody actually driving it. It's almost like think of your remote control truck when you're a kid playing in the driveway. It's a standalone, no operator on the vehicle. So yeah, just think of a big Tonka truck, running right with nobody on board. So it's a pretty cool innovation that they're doing here. And then in the lower right-hand corner here, this is one of our load haul dumps. It's actually an underground mining vehicle. So you'll notice the low profile and the length of the vehicle. It's actually completely battery powered, not down to a Duracell level, obviously much bigger batteries. Not the most comfortable ride by any means, but again, the low profile needs to allow it to go, miles under the earth and still be able to communicate with people back on the surface. So I'll let Shane kind of go into the locomotive sector and kind of the tier 4 product that is our newest launch here.
Yeah, so our bread and butter, right, is locomotives. I'm sure that's fairly common knowledge. Recently, within the past few years, the government has stepped in and said, hey, thanks for all the locomotives you produced over the years, but we need to make sure that you're producing locomotives with lesser emissions. So we need to go back to the drawing board and create a product that is going to meet those emission standards. And so we had to create our Tier 4 locomotive. And what that does is, through many hours of engineering, there's always a place for engineers. There are many hours of engineering. We did finally design a product that cut our emissions by 70%, which was a huge one. In turn, when we were ready to launch the product, the market kind of collapsed a little bit. We did make a bet because we are going to invest in this technology. We know that there's not necessarily a market available right now. We are going to invest in this technology because we think it's going to come. And that's a bet that really paid off because our competitors, Caterpillar, did not make the same bet. So when the market rebounded and customers came looking for new Tier 4 locomotives, we were the only ones with a product available to offer them, which was great, but it also created its own set of problems. Because I believe it was, middle of last year, we were ready to start delivering these Tier 4 locomotives. We didn't just have to deliver one, we had to deliver a couple hundred of them. So we're going from building an old style Tier 3 locomotive, what we've been used to, what we've been building for years and years, to now all of a sudden have to shift gears, stop producing those, and start producing new Tier 4s. It's very complicated, caused a lot of stress on the supply chain, but it was, it's something we were able to do, and something we were able to deliver to our customers on time, and we were able actually to deliver it with great quality metrics, cost metrics, and all those types of things. So Tier 4 has been a great story. We always wish there were more orders, but to be the only one in the market to have such a product offering is really been a differentiator for us.
Kind of on top of that, with diversity and technology, we've also explored LNG, which is liquefied natural gas. So they're also testing different means of, think of a fuel efficient vehicle just to keep it in real world terms. You went through the whole smart car thing and that whole phase when fuel prices were high. well, they're kind of doing the same thing with locomotives and saying, hey, when we're traveling, across, flat terrain, is there any way that we can essentially, shut off a little bit of our power so we're not consuming so much fuel and maybe, coast on a different form of energy. So, in that aspect, they're always, exploring different avenues there. Trip optimizers, there's all kinds of different stuff in the background that they're using to get it efficient.
Think about it this way. So when you go to the gas station to fill up your car with gas, are you more happy or less happy when gas is approaching $4 a gallon? Less, I think. When gas is down around $2.20, 30 cents, whatever it is now, you're probably more happy than when it's at $4. So we kind of went through the same thing, right? With LNG, with the liquefied natural gas. When gas was trading, when gas was around $4 a gallon, people were a little more hesitant to buy the diesel-powered locomotives. They wanted maybe something a little more affordable, a little cheaper, and that's when we started exploring the LNG market. And of course, the market shifted. Diesel became more affordable again, so we're kind of shifting gears again and reinvesting more there, while still exploring at least the LNG market because all things are cyclical. So
right.
Gas will at some point go northward again and left it.
And kind of on the flip side of that, from where Shane's going on the consumer side, on the business side, the challenges we were speaking of going through, when gas prices are down, it's usually not good for industry. It's good on the consumer's pocket, but typically then you're moving less right. You got more parked locomotives in the field, which is another thing that we're going through now. Is in addition to exploring different forms of technology, we're also retrofitting older units, older fleets to bring them up and make them more modern. So again, back into those peaks and valleys, we're always trying to find a way to still enhance our customers' product, while whether it be still enhanced.
So any questions this month?
It's kind of a general overview, of the business. So we'll kind of get into a little more of specifically what Shane and I do with our roles, more within the cost accounting. So just kind of in general terms, when people think of cost accounting, and accounting beings all day, it's monotonous work, but it's really more than that. There's a lot of different directions, a lot of different organizations that you have to work with to essentially streamline and make sure that this product is going to work within the lead time that you give. So we're kind of start off on a bill of material, which that might sound kind of like a foreign term to you guys, but essentially what it is it's a itemized sequence of whatever goes into the build of product. And that's probably one of the most important parts of our job. Accuracy would be a huge point of that. You got to think all the way from the ground up, nuts and bolts, all the way from raw material, sheet steel, copper, everything, all the way up to a final locomotive. So without an accurate bill of material, it's very hard to form the cost accounting part of the locomotive. And a lot of times, we're the ones who finally see that product come together. So there's a bunch of different entities that work to build that. Back to when Shane was speaking back to the design earlier, you go from designing a product to engineering it, to developing it, procuring all the material. So we're kind of the ones who finally see it on paper all together. So again, we're all human. Nothing's perfect. There's always stuff that leaks through. Unit of measure being one important thing. Stuff can be measured in pieces. Raw material could be in lengths. You could measure by a pound. If one of those is off, it can sway the cost of the product significantly. So we're kind of that first level of defense and radar to make sure that when a bill of material comes through, because on a locomotive you're talking 2,000 to 3,000 pages, to make sure that we're accurately costing the product in the piece.
Yeah. So take a step back a little bit. So Joe and I are official titles. We're basically cost accountants, right? Now, how many? I'm sure a lot of you have friends who are engineers, right? They probably look at these companies and find that you're really some wording. You're not going to add any value to anything. man, they're so wrong. So the kind of stuff that Joe and I do is actually pretty exciting to me. Like you said, it does start with a good clean bill of material. In a locomotive, you're talking 10,000 parts roughly, and that's not even counting all the components that go into the stuff that you buy. And so it's our job really to analyze all of those inputs into the product and determine what those costs are. How much is it actually costing us to build this thing? And if you think about it, you have two components really. You have the stuff that you buy and the stuff that you make, right? Now, the stuff that you buy, it's no different than if you go to the store and you buy something off the shelf. There's a material cost associated with it, right? That's cash out of your pocket. We've got to spend our cash to go procure material that we don't have the capability to go to the house, right? And then now you got to take those inputs and now you got to manufacture them into something. You got to put things together. You got to assemble things, machine things, weld things, all that kind of stuff, all those types of operations. Now, how many of you have jobs outside of it? Sam? Yeah. Do you guys like to get paid for those jobs?
Yeah.
I can see. Well, so the laborers are no different, right? The welders, the assemblers, they like to get paid for what they do too. So there's also a cost associated with the assembly piece, the maintenance, right? Those guys have a wage rate that they get paid. So for every hour it takes to build something, right? There's an hourly wage that goes on top of that. And of course, right, there's electricity, and there's water, and there's heat, there's indirect workforce, and there's all kinds of other stuff that goes into running the shop. Like a lot of indirect expenses. We've got to liquidate that through our overhead costs. So you put that on top of your labor hours as well. And then you roll all that up, all those buy parts, all those make parts, and you get to the cost of the product, right? On the surface, it sounds relatively straightforward. But again, part of Joe's exciting life is that we get to analyze different bills of materials between different products, different time frames, and communicate to the business what the cost of the product is doing. Are we seeing costs go up? Are we seeing costs go down? What do we forecast those costs to be based on different market factors, commodities? And then to go a step further, we get to tell business why those things are happening, why your costs are up, why your costs are down, how much is related to productivity in the shop, how much is related to the fact that we just bought stuff for cheaper or we bought stuff more expensive, or how much is related to the fact that copper went from trading at $3 a pound to $2 a pound, right? We get to explain all those things. So there are a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of analysis that needs to be done. But at the end of the day, it's about telling the story to the business in terms of cost.
Right. And kind of building on that, there's a few different cost types we actually work with. The first thing we do is we set a standard cost, which kind of think of that as your baseline. And the way we calculate that is we base that on the weighted average from the year before. So that's what carries over to kind of develop your baseline. We also have something that's called a current configuration, which will kind of put it back to like the car relation. There's always add-ons and changes that are made after a product's developed, right? Think of like a model year for a car. 2016 is going to be a little different than a 2015 is. So once we establish that standard baseline, that doesn't change throughout the year. That stays as it is because that's essentially what we comp off of. That's kind of how we gauge inflation, deflation, and variance off of that. So once something changes after that, we can run the current configuration, which will tell us, hey, back what changed it. Was this productivity? Was this an engineering change? Was this a product that went from a make to a buy? It's going to show any gap between there. And then the actual bucket would be, hey, what's the last actual invoice price you paid? Which then essentially, once you roll those throughout the year, that's going to roll up into your standard cost for the year following. So there's many different buckets that we work within, but big picture of it being is, how much is the product costing us to build compared to what we're selling it for? Where's your profit margin, and how do you increase that gap?
And so a big piece of what we do too is obviously when you roll up your product costs, right? That affects so many different things that impact the balance sheet and Um, One of the big ones is the cost of sales, right? You build things and sell. You want to sell those things. You want to make money on those things. And typically, you try to sell those things for more than what you paid them for. To Joe's point, you buy a car, right? And you buy a car for $30,000. Here's my deal with the money. Joe rolls a mess. I don't know that. So you buy a car for like $30,000. It probably costs. It probably costs Ford or General Motors or whoever, right? It costs them something south of that, you would think, to make that car for that automobile, right? Maybe somewhere in the $20,000. So the product cost is an important piece of this, right? They want to know what the product costs are so they can determine the market. How much we mark this up on to make a certain amount of money, right? And that's when you start getting into your revenue streams, your income, and your operating margin and all that, right? Another important piece is inventory, right? If you've got a bunch of money tied up in your locomotive, right? Again, going back, you have all these inputs, you've got to buy all these parts, right? You got to keep them in your inventory until you actually put them on the product and send the product to the customer. All those assets are sitting in inventory, right? Your cash is wrapped up in inventory for as long as those assets are sitting there. Now your inventory, that's also going to show up on the balance sheet as an asset, right? But you have to liquidate those assets at some point through your sales. So again, that's all piece of those are all impacted by the product costs and how that's rolled up. That goes back to what Joe said, having a good clean bill of materials, making sure your engineering team is tied off with your manufacturing team, is tied off with your operating team, your sourcing team, your purchasing.
Right. And going back to the inflation deflation, we'll kind of correlate that back to the market. If we go out, like Shane said, when we took the gamble on the Tier 4 and said, hey, we're going to build 1,000 of these units. We kind of forward-reached, assuming that we were going to get that much business. But think about it just in real world terms. If you go to the store and you buy, 2 of something, you're going to pay an individual unit price for those. But hey, if you go to a Sam's Club or a Costco, you buy in bulk, you might get a little bit of a discount. That's kind of the same thing that we work with is, hey, the more volume we have, usually the more purchasing power and leverage you have with your vendors in order to lower costs. So that's another thing as far as, the correlation with volume. And then kind of the global marketplace we're in is, hey, where can we get a quality product for less cost? So our sourcing team is very active out there trying to source new vendors, new products, and, make sure we can, again, increase that profit margin and say, hey, what are we paying to make this product and, what our customers want to do.
Yeah, so just to comment on kind of the market dynamics, right? The locomotive, I'm sure you've all seen rolling down the tracks throughout town. Is locomotive heavy or is it light? It's pretty heavy, right? You look like you could bench press. But the locomotive is very heavy, obviously. You're talking somewhere upwards of, 300, 400, 500,000 pounds. So very heavy. It's made up of a lot of metal, a lot of steel. There's some copper that goes into it. There's some aluminum. There's some other metals. But really, the locomotive is made up of metal, of steel. That's really the bulk of the weight when it comes to locomotive. So if you think about the market dynamics, right? When the price of steel goes up, the cost of our product is affected adversely. Because now we're paying more for all those raw material inputs. The cost of our product then goes up. If the market for steel goes down, right? Now we're paying less for the raw materials. And Joe was talking about standard costs versus actual costs and all that, right? So we've got a standard here, and now the market goes down. We're paying more for the raw materials. Now we're we're realizing some deflation, the cost of our product goes down. Like, that's cash in the business's pocket. We're paying less for the material that we budgeted for. So that's cash that we need to keep on. And similarly, it's the same thing for other metals such as copper. And then foreign exchange is another thing. Where we've taken international finance courses. The dollar being weaker or stronger versus the euro or the yen has a cost benefit to us, right? Because we're a global business. We have global suppliers. We've got suppliers in the Czech Republic. We've got suppliers in Japan. We've got suppliers in India and Australia, all over the world, right? We like to pay those vendors in our local currencies. Not all of them, surprisingly, like the U.S. dollar. So we are prone to shifts in foreign currency rates, foreign exchange rates. So as those go up or down, as the dollar weakens or strengthens, then that's cash that we either lose or gain. So we are very sensitive to the markets and to the commodities. And in some cases, we do hedge for copper and for certain foreign currencies to try to at least maintain some cost certainty around those. But again, we are very sensitive to those.
Right. And another big part of that, speaking on, when we go buy a completed product from a vendor, that's another area we rely heavily on our sourcing for is, hey, if the price of steel is going down, well, Bob or Tom down the road who I'm buying it for, his price of steel must be going down too, right? Or are we paying them the same price for the finished product? So when sourcing goes to the contracts, that's another thing you have to take into account is the market influences. Like Shane said, if we're buying so much steel or copper that we can actually, move the dial, on the market, there's different areas that, we can take risks or gambles, and if we have a good inclination that, a shift is going to happen, I'm sure you guys have learned, a lot of that in your investment courses. What you guys do with Philbeck, it definitely applies to not just the stock market, but when you think about global commodities, it's definitely heavily present as well.
Any questions to this? All nice questions. Yeah, what's up?
So you're saying whenever the price of steel, let's say, were to go down and the extra money on since you guys raise your price, but then the extra money is just going straight into like business profits, or the price of the product is at all, like the current price.
Yeah, so essentially, just to really the simple answer is we have a budget. We've got we kind of define what the cost of our product is, and then we variance off of that. Right?
That's that standard cost, that kind of benchmark I was talking about.
Correct. And that's all based off of activity that happened in the prior year, right? So we're actually going through that now. We're looking at our 2016 activity, and we're saying, okay, based on the average of that, what are our 2017 baselines, right? So when the price of steel, for example, goes down, and now we're paying less for it, that's cash in our pocket because that's less than we had forecasted that we're going to pay, right? So it's a little extra cash that we have to reinvest elsewhere. We thought we were going to have to pay X. We're really paying Y, so we can go redistribute that cash elsewhere.
Would it be beneficial to lower the overall price of the final product?
So we do have, so now you're talking on the sales side, which really is our area of expertise, but what I do know is we do have clauses with our customers that says, hey, if the market increases by 15%, then our sales price is going to increase by 15%, right? Or similarly on the other side, if the market collapses by 15%, we'll reduce our selling price by 50%. So there are clauses in our contracts, and we do the same thing with our suppliers, right? Because we are customers for a bunch of other vendors as well, where we say, hey, you know what? we'll define bands, 5% above or below a certain threshold, we'll call it good. You guys assume the risk. Anything above or below that, then, we'll true that up. Either we'll issue you a check or you send us some cash back, right? So we have clauses in our contracts to account for market fluctuations like that.
Then to challenge you the other way on the hedging side, so if we go in and hedge at a certain level and it ends up going lower, well, we're stuck at that hedge price. So it can show you both ways. You can either make out on it or you can get burned from it.
Typically, because the locomotive market is a pretty slow moving market, right? It takes some time to build a locomotive. We're normally out trying to fulfill orders for 2018, 2019, and beyond, right? With that in mind, we do tend to keep our sales prices flat for at least a calendar year, and then we go back and revisit and say, based on our dynamics, based on our cost structure, we can reset our margins, we can reset our sales.
Any other questions?
We are always trying to collapse our cost structure, of course, because if you collapse your cost structure, you keep your sales price the same. That's obviously more you have greater margin.
Thinking back to the lead time Shane spoke about, we're trying to fill orders for next year and the year following. If you think about all the material you have to procure, make sure your vendor has enough time to get it to you. Just the whole spaghetti diagram of the supply chain. There's so many different pieces of communication and teams that have to work together. Because in the end, you do have that customer commitment. When they sign a contract to purchase, a product from you, they expect to have it by that date. So, you always got to take into account, if a vendor falls down or, a shipment gets lost here or there. It's just such an integral web where, we work with so many different teams, engineering, sourcing, the commercial team. We're kind of in the middle of that entire web. So back to cost accounting, what it sounds like on paper, it's definitely much more lively and interesting.
Yeah, it's not like going to the store, right? And my wife she texted me a little bit ago and said, hey, we need milk from the store. So I can just go to the store and pick up a gallon of milk from all at home. A BNSF or a CSX, you can't just go to the locomotive store and pick up a locomotive, right? It's quite a different marketplace, obviously.
But at the same time, once you have everything in line, have everything procured, it's pretty amazing how fast and efficiently you can put one together when all the pieces fall together. But again, the R&D and the planning side of it is very intense up front. You need to make sure that you're seamless there, don't have leakage, or else that's where you run into daily fires, and that's what presents challenges. All right, we'll kind of go on to some takeaways overall. We'll kind of relate this just to general real world view. Have any of you guys ever heard the topic of lean manufacturing, just lean in general? It kind of started in the car business. There's different terms you'll hear, Yamazumi, Kaizen, different stuff that kind of sounds foreign to our language, Gemba. But it's actually a culture that we've really grasped onto in our industry and specifically our team in general. And the things you learn, just overall, if you think of lean, it's really what it is eliminating waste and increasing efficiency. And a dumbed down version to kind of explain that is work smarter, not harder, right? So there's always different ways you can cut stuff out anywhere in your life, and it doesn't necessarily apply to the shop floor. There's whether you're sitting in an office or studying for a test or planning for a project, there's always ways to work better, to eliminate waste. Becoming more efficient is definitely a big part of our world, and that's something that anyone can relate to. Even in your shoes, you can definitely apply those concepts to where you're at as a student.
Yeah. So, when we talk about, maybe you've heard about lean, it's always more in a manufacturing kind of framework. And working at GE, right, we are a manufacturing company, but one of the things that I've learned, at least in my role, is lean doesn't necessarily apply just to manufacturing. It can apply to a finance role as well. And, you know, you may be asking yourself, well, how finance is, you know, you just punch in numbers and you become statements and all that kind of stuff. We're very transactional. And when you think about the life cycle of the transaction, you know, there's a process involved in doing that transaction. And so you can apply lean principles to that same process that you would in a process that happens in a shop, right? If you think about how you go about making a journal entry, or how you go about analyzing a certain piece of data, right? And if you kind of put together a process diagram, a process flow as to how you attack that problem, then you can look at that and say, this takes me, I'm just going to give some, this takes me an hour to do. I think if I do this, this, and this, I can do it in a half hour. Now you free up a half hour you get it. Right? That's kind of lean in a general sense. It's always looking at your processes and trying to think about how you get better. And to Joe's point, that's something that we've really grasped onto in our supply chain finance team. We're always trying to reduce our cycles so we can try to do more analysis, right? Add more value to the business. One example that I have just from my personal life, right? When I go home every night, I put my keys, my wallet, my cell phone in the same exact place every night. That way I know when I wake up, I know, and I'm getting ready to work, right? I know where my wallet is, I know where my keys are, I know where my phone is, right? I know where these things are because I've got a state of work, I've got a routine, I've got a process that I follow. When my wallet or my keys or my phone are not in the places they're supposed to be, now I know something's wrong. Right? I've got a problem solving to figure out, okay, where are those things? Where am I keys? Why are they not hooked inside the front door, right? So now I've got a problem solving to figure that out. Well, what happened to prevent me from putting my keys on the hook, right? And that's kind of the same mentality that we've got in our workplace. We're looking at costs on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. We're doing the same analysis week over week, right? So that by doing that, now you can say, okay, it was X last week, it's Y this week. What changed or what happened? Why am I seeing this failure? Or why am I seeing this error? Right? Now we can problem solve it with the team to maybe prevent that error from happening in the future. So now we get communicated. We can communicate better numbers to the business, right? We build a little bit of credibility doing that as well. And so again, the concept of lean is always be striving for continuous improvement. Always try to get better. Always try to improve your processes and routines. And
it kind of leads into the next two bullet points we have: gauge, R&R, and standard work. You know, back to collapsing cycles. You know, what Shane was talking about. One big thing is, you know, our processes are, can you repeat them, can you reproduce them? Standard work, big thing that we take a lot of pride in. You always think, you know, how can you get everything done in one day? You guys can relate to this as students and Dr. Philbeck with all your different endeavors. You got to kind of structure yourself to make sure that you can fit everything in. So again, you know, establishing certain practices where you're doing kind of the same thing at the same time each day, day in and day out, allows you to build that momentum. And, you know, once you are be able to become more efficient in class cycles, it gives you additional time to take on something else. So, you know, think about that with your studies and your take-home work and your projects. You know, always becoming more efficient creates more free time for you to do other stuff.
So any questions on that piece? Yes.
Does custom verify if it doesn't walk, it's probably not
It's kind of the next place we're going to go into, because when Shane was talking about being kind of everything has a story behind it. Kind of a big part of our job is uncovering the story and being able to explain the story and articulate the story to somebody that it makes no sense to, because just because, you know, Shane does his analysis, like you said, week over week, month over month, year over year. Somebody that doesn't do what he does every day might not understand that. So a big thing that our leadership instills on us is, you know, how can you explain this to make sense to somebody that might not know it whatsoever? So the term we use, trust and verify, is, you know, if the story doesn't walk, if it doesn't calculate, it's probably not right. So don't be afraid to recheck yourself, you know, even when you're done, you know, with a spreadsheet or a project, anything. We always go back and recheck it. Even if I do something, Shane, take a look at it. Same thing, Joe, put your eyes on this, talk it out, walk through it. Sometimes it really helps and allows problems to work themselves out just by doing your trust and verify.
Yeah, and another way to kind of explain this too is, you know, we do a lot of forecasting as a business, just so we can properly align the business to whatever demands we face, right? So in order to do those forecasts, we come at a certain number of different ways, right? We've got what we call tops-down analysis and bottoms-up analysis, where tops-down would be where you take kind of a high-level view and you say, based on this variable, this variable, this variable, I think the number's going to come in or how it should be, right? And then the bottoms-up approach would be, let's get down to the very, very bottom level of the business, have a part-level detail, right? And roll all that up, and then based on that analysis, we think it's going to be good, right? So if you have an expectation of a number, and you can't get from point A to point B, to Joe's point, that's when, if you can't walk that up from point A to point B to what your expectation is, it's probably not correct, right? You kind of got to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what are my inputs? What are my assumptions, right? You want to trust what your number's telling you, but you also want to verify that your inputs and assumptions are correct. Right? So you want to be able to walk to whatever answer you need.
It's essentially unwinding your math. That's what he's saying. Even if you're doing, you know, your project or homework, you know, it's just taking the answer you started with, what you can do to make sure that you can do the math and between it out. And then kind of the final, you know, value or goal that we have, continuous improvement. You know, we're always striving to get better. You know, learn from your mistakes. You know, there's a lot of different variables and challenges we face day in, day out. So just make sure, you know, the next time you do it around, just do it better than you did at the time.
That's actually great. That's a great piece of advice too. Is, you know, and like saying this with a little bit of humility, but when I first started in the role, you know, I was afraid to make a mistake. I didn't want to report a wrong number. I didn't want to report that analysis. But what I've learned through 6 years in this particular role is it's actually okay to make mistakes. What's not okay is not learning from those mistakes. So make a mistake, you know, no worries. Just make sure, you know, communicate that mistake, talk through with a colleague or a friend or a fellow student, and say, here's what I did, and here's what I think I did wrong, and bounce it off to somebody, get their opinion, learn from it, and then that way, you know, you're improving, getting better, and taking steps to make sure that the same error that you made doesn't happen again.
And I think I came to you for the same piece of advice when I started. You know, so you're working with these big numbers and you know, delivering this data to, you know, senior executive manager. You're, you know, to Shane's that paranoid to make that critical mistake. But gaining the confidence is a big part of it, and that comes with time on the job. You know, you're going to get better at it. You're going to instill that confidence in yourself. And then, you know, like we said, just learning how to explain the process, and if something didn't work right this time and we figured it out, well then, you know, back to the lean principles, detecting abnormality, trust and verify outcome, and maybe that it's really what it comes down to. So, but just supply chain in a whole, just kind of give you guys, you know, some confidence going forward. If, you know, anyone's interested in the, you know, the corporate finance route, it doesn't just have to be manufacturing, you know, with locomotives. You know, it's the phones you're on in your hands, the computers you have, everything has a supply chain that goes into it. You know, you have to take raw material and turn it into a product. So there's so many different avenues you can take. And even within corporate finance, you know, it doesn't have to be on the supply chain side. There's engineering finance, you know, within our business. There's the commercial side, you know, dealing with the sales end of it. There's finance that backs everything. So don't be afraid to explore different avenues, you know, within corporate finance, whether you're going that way or, you know, you want to go more into the personal side, the investments, and it doesn't hurt to try both. They all sort of relate to each other some way or another. So, you know, no matter what background you have, there's plenty of opportunity.
Coach Shane, if you could go back and give yourself advice as your younger self, what would you tell yourself now, which you may not have taken advantage of or you didn't do, that you would do now that you've been out for some time?
It's a good question. You know, every part of its life presents challenges, you know, school being one of them. I think just, you know, taking it for the fullest, you know, we talk about, you know, it seems like an eternity since we've left here. It's good to come back and see the growth and changes you guys have made, you know, from the left. But, you know, you look back at how fast time goes by now, and it's just, you know, definitely take it to the fullest extent you can. You know, definitely be involved and learn and grasp as much as you can, whether it be directly, you know, book study related or, you know, clubs like you guys are in now. Like, this is something great that you guys are taking advantage of. But yeah, just give it your all, and it's gonna pay dividends in the future.
Yeah, so I guess speaking professionally, you know, one thing that I look back, one thing that I wish I would have done more of, or at least documented more, was some of your basic finance and accounting fundamentals, right? Simple balance sheet, income statement. Some of those types of principles, I wish I would have documented better or tried to retain a little bit better, because now that I'm in a particular role, right? I'm assigned certain tasks, and that's what I'm focused on, right? You tend to lose a sense of those fundamentals, because, you know, unless you're directly associated with the balance sheet or the income statement, you tend to lose a little bit of expertise because you're so focused on the task at hand, right? So, not saying that I can't read a balance sheet or income statement, but I do wish that I did maintain a little bit of rigor, a little bit of documentation around those basic fundamentals.
And I'll kind of build off that, Shane, you know, just the way technology is expanding and evolving. We kind of joke, you know, internally with ourselves, you know, you think back to the day you did long division and multiplication on paper. Then you go to calculators. Now everything continues to grow. Like Shane said, the rigor around, you know, the formulas that Dr. Philbeck teaches you, just the principles of the core, you know, mathematics that goes into it. It's really important. And then the world we live in, I mean, Excel is huge. Take advantage of computer science. Learn everything you can on Excel, whether it's finance or any other organization of the business. I think that's a common theme that's a valuable tool that's not going away. There's so many different formulas that you can build and manipulate and replicate to make your life easier. So the more core, you know, Excel practice you have, certainly take advantage of that. Anything else just in general Q&A? What's kind of our audience? Are you guys mostly in your core classes now, still prerequisite, juniors, seniors? Okay. So we'll be entering the workforce not too long now. No, take advantage while you're here. Again, you have the rest of your life to work. Time goes by fast, so enjoy it while you're here, and good luck after that. That will do well.
Yeah, if anybody has a certain interest in the finance world, whether whether it's on the corporate side, whether it's on supply chain side or the sales side, let us know. We can at least put you in touch with somebody who we work with, that we can at least ask some questions and get a feel for maybe what they do on a day-to-day basis. See if that's something you might be interested in.
Yeah, and even if you have additional questions after, just from a networking standpoint, we'll get you guys their contact information. Don't be afraid to reach out. Same way, come back to Dr. Philbeck. It's good to keep in touch with people. So it's always good to keep doors open and network. Because again, you never know where you're going to end up after school. And even if you start in one avenue and go to the next, it's kind of crazy how life comes full circle and you re-interact with people and thought you're like, oh, so definitely keep those doors open and keep your contacts available.
Say hi to Gonna get everything right?
She'll tell us the truth when we get back to work.
Any other questions, comments? Nice.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Ralph.